I'm here now with Ben Habib and the wonderful Andrew Eborn.
The wonderful, I love it. And can I say what a delight it is to be on your maiden voyage? It's wonderful.
Why, thank you.
The best way of waking up in the morning. You should do it more regularly.
Oh, we must do this more, Andy. Just before we start, I'll read a couple of messages. So the first one is relevant to Molly, who we've just had on. Says, Renee, it's Craig in Durham. I think that Molly did a fantastic job for showing some concern about children as well as the parents, and she did indeed. Morning, the way to end wokeism is how we ended McCarthyism, by asking if they have no shame. I don't think they have any shame. Excuse another sci-fi reference. Only a Sith deals in absolutes. From Bob. I don't really know what that means. What's
only a Sith. Oh, yes.
Thank you, Bob. OK, so Andrew, you're going to go through the papers for us today. So what's your first story?
Well, I'll tell you what it is. Every time we look at growing old disgracefully and supporting our ageing population, and a great story in the Express today, at last hope for victims of a £1 billion pension injustice. And what this story basically is that women aged over 75 were entitled to pensions based on 60% of their husband's contributions. But what happened is you didn't tick a box, or you didn't go through the relevant admin, you missed out. And they've estimated that about £1 billion has been lost as a result of it. And so what's happened, the payments were made automatically from March 2008, but anybody who retired before then lost out on thousands upon thousands of pounds. What they then said is that if you claimed it, they'd only let you go back 1 year. So lots and lots of money's been left. What's happened now, however, they've reversed that and saying, look, there might be some hope. So if it does affect any of you, do look into that. Lots and lots of women will be affected as a result of it.
So they have definitely reversed it?
Well, there's been one case, has been the start. So okay. I think the key is, now there's been that case, look into it, because this could be the best news ever to start your maiden voyage. People could be getting thousands upon thousands of pounds, and it does affect it. And I think looking at that ageing population, going back all those years, plus the great thing is you can get interest and so on and so forth on those payments.
So this isn't a story about the women who missed out because they changed the retirement age. So that was my mistake.
Yeah.
This is about...
You never make mistakes.
Well, I think I did.
Mistakes.
So this is about them actually being able to claim from their husband's pension.
Absolutely. And it's 60% of what would have been, which would be a significant increase. So as I say, they've estimated £1 billion was not paid out.
This is presumably where husbands have died, is it?
Yes, yes. So don't go killing your husband.
For a quick
that's not the advice.
It's better than a divorce settlement.
But it is actually, isn't that good?
You get more than 50%.
Yes,
you get all the assets plus 60%.
What a bug! I told you, the harbinger of good news. We're drowning in bad news. So I thought that'd be a great start. So have a look at that.
I think it is a great start, and I think it's really interesting how you can only go back 1 year, but the taxman can go back as much as he wants.
Well, that's the thing. So it's all going to change, but I think it's dependent on people at home doing something about it. If you are in that category, then do have a look at it.
What do they do?
Well, they can basically make the claim, have a look, go and research their pension providers and so on and so forth, and say, look, hang about, I might have missed out.
Okay.
So what tends to happen, there was an admin that they had to do, and basically they had to tick a box, or the husband
had to do.
This is
state pension?
Yes, yeah, so it works on that sort of basis. But have a look. I mean, it may affect a lot of people. It could be wonderful news to wake up to on a Saturday.
Absolutely. So you're second. We couldn't really do a show without this story, could we?
We could. Good old Donald Trump, everybody's favourite poster boy. The lad just keeps on giving, doesn't he? What I want, two wonderful cartoons. First of all, there's a great one, Matt, who I always love, in the Telegraph. You won't get that very clearly, but what it shows is a prison, and it shows a big wall built round that prison, and it says, I'm going to build a huge wall. And obviously, Trump is right in the middle of it. So there was a prophecy of that, but also a wonderful one in the Times as well. There you go, which actually is a very accurate reflection. There's Trump behind bars, but the popularity is going through the roof.
I did say to Ben earlier that I heard a commentator yesterday from Trump's camp saying that he only needs one more indictment to guarantee the presidency.
And I love it. So all that happens, and the way you do it is you control the narrative. You tell people this is what's going to happen. It's a witch hunt, coven ready. I thank you. And what you do, you tell people they're after me, and as soon as they come after you, all of your fans get behind you on that sort of basis. What's interesting, the fascinating thing is, in the States, even if he were convicted, he could still run to be president. And it's not the first time in history. There was Eugene V. Debs, if I remember. It just sounds like a court case. In 1920, he ran from behind bars. I was be a flush of my youth then, but it's got to be good. Claiming my pension. The joy of it is that he ran in 1920, and also more recently, Lyndon LaRouche, I think in 1992, he ran from behind bars. So it's an extraordinary situation in the States.
You could argue that Trump almost needs to win the presidency in order to pardon himself.
Wouldn't that be lovely? Wouldn't that be
I think that's what will happen.
First thing you could do, I'll let you off.
Although you could also question why it's taken them 2.5 years to bring these charges now.
Yeah, and all things. I always ask when anything, suddenly there's a story about to break. You wonder, how long has it been there? Why are they waiting now to do it? And it just plays into the narrative which he so brilliantly has peddled. And he is a master media manipulator.
Well, I think they want him to run, because I think that Biden thinks he can beat Trump, but I don't think he thinks he can beat DeSantis.
Not in a running race, I don't reckon. but it could on the
definitely not in a running race. Not a bicycle race either,
definitely not,
off of those.
But quite extraordinary. But you would think, I mean, looking at the difference between the UK and what's happening here, not a story we're going to cover today because we're going to do it another time, but Sunak and the whole sort of people climbing up on his building, that would never happen to Biden. You know, in the States...
Oh, my goodness, they'd be shocked.
Well, isn't that the point? So just looking at the difference between that and everything else, it is quite extraordinary.
They knocked at the front door.
Yeah,
I know we digress slightly, but apparently they knocked at the front door to say we're about to have a peaceful protest on your house.
I'm absolutely staggered that law enforcement weren't all over that.
And it's a big security issue, and we're joking aside. But also, I don't think it did them any favours, because what's happened is that they've now lost right of audience and so on and so forth. It's rather like Just Stop Oil. Whatever their cause, whatever your thoughts on the justification, if you basically upset everybody, you're defeating the object, aren't you?
I don't know. I mean, there are some people who were tweeting yesterday saying that they think it was staged and the government let them do it so that Rishi could then say, well, this is why I don't want to go too far.
How did they get in? How could you get into the Prime Minister's private residence, climb all over it, be there clearly for hours doing all this nonsense? 5 hours.
It is quite extraordinary, and all sorts of questions will need to be answered over the next few days. But I think I like the idea of manipulating the narrative, because that's always good, and that plays directly into Trump, because I think he's a master.
But you know, Trump was beaten at the midterms.
Yes.
Everyone was saying he's done.
Yeah.
DeSantis is the man. Yeah. And now he's 40 points ahead of DeSantis.
You look at the percentages. It is quite extraordinary.
It's extraordinary.
But he's brilliant. I did predict ages ago that when they first ran, nobody said he wouldn't even get on the ballot paper. I said he will do that and he will win. And I do predict he will come.
Do you still believe that?
I still reckon he's got a really good chance, you know, and I think this plays into his narrative.
And what happens to all of these indictments? How many did you say there were, Ben?
78.
78.
No, but
that does look like a witch hunt.
Yeah,
you know, one indictment for a specific crime, we might get that.
Yeah.
But 78, that's a shotgun approach.
And he's had thousands of law cases throughout his career. He has. I mean, if you look at the stuff he's done on business point of view, all of that sort of thing, having a look at that sort of stuff. But this story will run and run, and we'll be here for weeks.
And don't forget, playing in the background of this is Hunter Biden's plea bargain broke down. So this has nicely eclipsed that off of the front pages again. And I think it's important to say that, because there's a lot of murky stuff there that doesn't ever make it quite into the media.
Yeah. And you're absolutely right. I always say it's fascinating, the whole media cycle, and that wonderful Wag the Dog. Do you remember that great movie where they basically, true to life, they started a war, and there was a Hollywood, Dustin Hoffman was the wonderful Hollywood producer, and he staged a war in a studio, basically to detract people. It's the glorious misdirection. So you don't worry about the small stuff, bits and pieces.
I always wonder what else is going on when these big things happen, like balloons being shot down from the sky. What else was going on?
What was all that about?
So low tech. I mean, in this day and age of artificial intelligence, you had a balloon to a spy. Do me a favour. It doesn't make any sense at all. What I also love, though, I mean, high street banks, and you had your wonderful caller in earlier. Banks are getting a terrible time at the moment, they would say, because you've had Coots and you've had NatWest and you've had our good friend Nigel turning around.
Of their own making,
I think you're probably right. What's happened again, the Governor of the Bank of England saying high street banks must do more for savers, because all these interest rates, which are affecting everybody, especially those with mortgages and so on and so forth, it is terrible, but it's not being reflected in instant access savings accounts. So banks need to get their act together, because a lot of people at the moment are suffering, and a lot of the stories about that. We got the Lotto Lag, who basically he won 6.5 million on the lottery, and all of a sudden he lost it all and was sleeping on.
Do you think he didn't save it because the rates weren't high enough?
I think that's probably what happened. He put it under his mattress because he couldn't put it in a bank. His work on that. And also, the tragic story, that you often hear this with pop stars as well. People make a lot of money quickly.
This is really sad.
Yeah, S-Club Paul died broke. He owed about 20 grand. And very, very sad. But there is hope. And the hope, as I always say in the solution, AE, the Back to the Futurist, the hope is always artificial intelligence. And there's a new test.
Any form of intelligence
Any
is welcome.
form of intelligence is welcome. There used to be a test.
Has left the room.
There used to be a test.
Do you know, I did say at the beginning of COVID that the problem that we have here is the most intelligent people in the country have just stopped thinking.
Yeah.
And that's what's happening.
The brain drain,
Intelligent people are just not thinking.
I think that's right. If you take a little step back. But
so
this
Andrew
is where
wants AI to take over.
And this is what happened. So there used to be a test. Alan Turing, in the 1950s, he's the chap, I always want to do this, but he's the chap who appears on the back of one of these, back of a £50 note.
He does always do.
I do. It's the same note, and I try and give it away.
That's wonderful that he is on the back.
Isn't that great? Because it should be respected, because at the time he was vilified for what he did. He proposed a test basically saying if you spoke to a computer and you tap in text and it fooled you into thinking that you're dealing with a real person, that's what's called the imitation game. And basically that means that the system has won. It's now been proposed by Mustafa Suleyman, who was one of the founders of DeepMind, to change the test. He would say, wouldn't it be better to give AI £100,000 to invest and see, which is great, and to turn on, if they can use all of their intelligence, market forces and everything else, and turn that into $1 million. And I think that's a great idea, because AI as a power for good could solve a lot of things.
They're going to do it, aren't they?
Yeah, of course they are.
Of course they are.
Well, I think they're probably already doing it, is the honest answer, because these machines are tremendous.
But they're not letting us participate. Someone's doing it.
They're not letting some people participate. Talk to me, I'll sort you out later, Ben. It's going to go. No, but have a look at that sort of side, because it writes poetry. It's better than chatting to your GP, is what was that survey? That's what
they've now got sexual partners, I think, through AI.
Oh, absolutely.
That talk to you and say, whisper nice things in your ear. And
what nice things would you whisper?
Oh, I'm not. What time is it? It's 6:30. Saturday morning.
People are waking up now and saying, Ben's talking about whispering nice things. It's got to go. But you're right. And what happens is there's people have AI girlfriends and boyfriends and lovers and partners, and that's because it will give them the time.
That is what is wrong in the world.
Absolutely. I agree. But what's happening is it's getting more empathy. So the AI can push your buttons more than your mother, your children, or everything, because it knows more about you.
And there was a chap who broke into Buckingham Palace. I think he told his online girlfriend he was going to do that.
Yeah, he did.
His AI girlfriend, and she encouraged him. She said, "It's a good thing. They'll respect you more for it."
Well, exactly. you're not like the others, is what she said, and it was working exactly on that premise. Chael was his name, and it's a horrible story about breaking in with a crossbow to shoot the Queen. And he had this conversation with his AI girlfriend and explained what he was going to do. And she said she'd admire him for doing this, and other bits and pieces.
So
dangerous.
I can't help feeling that if we have a society who think they get more empathy from a computer, we have to re-examine society and go back to basics. And we know that those basics are we are humans and we thrive on human contact.
Yeah. I always say the more means of communication we have, the less we're able to communicate.
Yeah.
Because we cannot. You go and sit to somebody in a restaurant at the moment, they're all on one of these, swiping left, right, whatever, looking what nice things Ben's going to say in their ear, all that sort of stuff. And that's what's going to happen.
Go and shoot the Queen.
Exactly. So I'm totally... One of the policies they talked about, various political parties, about orators, and you just turn people into the ability to speak, because now ChatGPT and various other platforms can write your essays for you. So how do you really test people? And one of the ways that you can test people is to get them to stand up and present. And what a great skill that would be to install in our children and indeed the population as a whole.
Because if we have AI writing their essays for them, we also lose their linguistic skills, their ability to think things through logically, plan an essay. I mean, planning an essay was, for me, the hardest thing to do. Once you get going...
Forming your thoughts.
Forming your thoughts into coherent passages that all link to each other. That is a skill. And I don't think we can afford for our children to lose that skill. That's my personal opinion.
You're absolutely right. But what you're doing, like any tool, you have to view AI as a tool, which is basically rather like a calculator. It didn't stop people doing, although they don't do as much in their head as they should do. Spell check. People said the same thing about spell check. You're not going to learn how to spell the words anymore. People can't... You try and do that. People don't remember numbers anymore because they're all automated in there. You will lose that ability. So what we need to do is the reality that the technology is is here and now. What we need to do is recognise that. And as you know, I talk around the world about AI. I advise companies about the potential, but also about the massive risk. And it was Stephen Hawking who said AI is our greatest human achievement, but it could be the biggest existential threat.
And how is that existential threat going to come about? Is it a kind of Skynet self-awareness that decides to wipe humanity out?
Well, there's one of those, and if the computer misunderstands and it says, stop human suffering, and it gets all that sort of thing, and rather like you put an animal down, you can turn around on that basis. So,
really?
Absolutely.
Oh, my goodness.
You have a look at... control climate change, whatever your views, in turn around and say, what's the biggest cause of climate change? And they research that sort of stuff. They say people will stop it. Yeah. So that's people's concern.
That actually almost makes our parliamentarians relatively reasonable.
Oh, no, they're totally reasonable. And they're expendable. They're only around for 4 years, and we juggle them around a bit. So AI's here forever. But it's looking at that as a tool, if you could understand what it does. Yeah. But also, and I'm really concerned about automating in weapons, for example. I think that is really horrendous. And we had a case, it wasn't an actual case in the end, because it killed in a simulation. This was the report. The simulation said an AI drone killed the instructor because it was trying to tell them to stop. And said, well, you're not going to tell me to stop. I'll get rid of you.
Yeah. This is terrifying.
It is terrifying. What we have to do is to look at regulation. The great thing, as you know, I was at the AI summit here in the UK very recently. Rishi Sunak was there saying we should be front and centre of this revolution. And I think we should. We're going to have another one in the autumn. And we should be looking at regulating. We should turn around and say, let's get the great minds together and let's look at, understand the technology, but look at how you can protect on that sort of side. And there are issues such as copyright, obviously, where you get the fake Drakes and the Weekends collaborating. And there was a wonderful one with Johnny Cash singing the Barbie song. Hilarious, all of these things which sound real. You can make that happen. But we need to look at regulating, make sure copyright is protected, but also what happens on the outside. So it's not used for ill. And it's what people call the bad actors using this tremendous technology for evil.
Yeah,
so talking about
used for evil, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely, it is. So you have, and the trouble is, those who agree to the regulations are not the ones you ought to protect against. It's the others.
Talking of great minds, Gen Z.
Oh,
tell me, who are Gen Z?
Well, that's sort of Generation Z, isn't it?
How old are they?
Well, about sort of Harry Styles' age, I guess, aren't they? Right. So what this is, it's Gen Z are men who are flocking to beauty counters, is what they're saying. So nowadays, is you can have your manicures and your mascara and that sort of stuff, and men's beauty products.
I've got frowned faces from the men in the
but they're beautifully frowned faces. They're full of filler. And they look surprised, but you just can't tell. They can't raise an eyebrow. What I love about it is it's now manscaping and various other things is a big rise. So overall, the spending amount within the health category has basically increased by 77% since last year, due to people like Harry Styles, who looks after himself. And they also quote David Bowie, which a long time ago, with his wonderful hair and his blue... I know you were tempted, Ben, having whispered sweet things in people. Next time you get your David Bowie ziggy look. It'd be fantastic. But it is interesting, and I think getting people to care about themselves is important.
This story doesn't offend me in any way, but I can categorically say that there would be no man in my life who was wearing makeup. Just none. It wouldn't happen.
Well, having come in here and been pounded up, I'll go now then. It's but why? Why is that though, Renée?
I don't want the man in my life wearing makeup. That's my job.
Yeah. Do you want them to take care of themselves? but where does that stop? Would you let them have a wax, for example?
That's not makeup. That's removal of unwanted hair.
Oh, so that's okay. I just want to find out where the line is.
You know, people have haircuts.
So that's okay. But makeup, you wouldn't.
Makeup, I draw the line.
Okay.
You know, I like my man to be nicely attired and smart.
So I dressed up today for you.
Exactly.
I'm Sunday best on a Saturday. It's got to be good. No, fantastic stuff. But that's the story. People are looking at that sort of side. It's interesting. Would you care if your partner was wearing makeup? Interesting stuff.
And the Estee Lauders and Cliniques of the world are rubbing their hands together.
It's a new market for them. If you double your market as a result, it's got to be fantastic.
It's because you're worth it, Andrew.
I am worth it. This is one of the sweet nothings he's whispering again. This is the new Ben I've seen. I love it. The R&B, the Renée and Ben. This is the perfect way of waking up. It's got to be good. Thank you for that. It's always a thrill. I love it. And speaking of Barbie, we talked about the massive rise in COVID cases.
I hate this story for so many reasons.
Well, what's what's happened is lots of people are going to the cinema, and I go and see everything. So, and normally I have these huge cinemas all to myself because nobody comes to the cinema anymore. It's really, really sad.
Oh, really?
I
love the cinema.
I love the cinema. We'll go together. We'll keep whispering those sweet nothings, Ben. We'll sort it.
I love the cinema.
There we go. The three of us. I'll wear the makeup and you can do the other stuff. So what I love about it is now all of a sudden we've got two mega blockbusters. We had Barbie and had Oppenheimer. Have you seen either or both? Or
no. I haven't seen either.
I've been away all week. I only got back last night.
But I've seen both. I saw them both on the opening, which is good.
It's one hell of an investment. 3 hours.
3 hours of your life. And I've yet to see a movie that can justify 3 hours, to be fair.
But that does?
Other than, no, I'm still...
I think what I don't like about this story is it's just more fear again. We're saying to people, oh, you went out and enjoyed yourself, so now you're at risk from COVID. And I just can't bear this fear-mongering. Stop it. Let people take risks, decide where they want to go. If they want to catch a cold, if they want to catch COVID, let them do it. End. And
I agree with you. And it shouldn't be, as they say in the Star, the pink-demic is what they're calling it, because people are getting into crowds. And I think never fear anything.
My goodness, we've got to get on in our lives.
And it was the father of PR, Edward Bernays, who said, if you want to sell anything to anybody, the greatest human emotion is fear. So you make people scared. They'll buy into anything.
Do you know, the cinemas have been destroyed during COVID, and we suddenly get two blockbuster films, whatever you think about them, that have driven people back there, and now we're telling them off because there's this race, and we're making the ones who might go this week scared to go.
Yeah.
Don't be scared.
Don't be scared.
Vilifying Barbie in the process.
Yeah, poor old Barbie.
The scarring on children.
I'll tell you what, they have gone through the roof. They are breaking all sorts of records before. Unprecedented. Use of the word unprecedented. It will be the toy. So Mattel are laughing on the toy front. I think the movie itself is not appealing to the people who collected Barbies. No. It's apart from those who maybe pull their heads off, which a lot of people did. It's appealing to the different generation. It's more charged, I think. It's got a different rating than the audience you would normally expect.
So, what's your last story?
Well, my last story is the wonderful... I talk about growing old disgracefully. It's something which you and I and David and I'm sure Ben now can join our wonderful campaign. Is we always say, look, we've got a rising population and we forget about our old people who've been working so long and so on and so forth. So we should celebrate age. And the wonderful story today is the announcement of my old chap. I think we've got a photo as well somewhere. I did send it. You've got our photo? Then we might pull it up. The wonderful Angela Rippon. You might remember Angela Rippon. There we are. Look at that. Look at that. Wonderful chap there with lots of makeup on. looking gloriously colourful. There's Angela and me.
Like another TV studio.
No, it doesn't look at all like that. Angela Rippon, moving swiftly on. Angela Rippon, who at 78, can you believe she's 78?
Fantastic.
Fantastic. She is going to be the oldest competitor ever on Strictly.
It's absolutely fantastic, and I couldn't commend her more. But Andrew, thank you so much.
Thank you for letting me come on your voyage.
Early and helping me get there. We're nearly there, Ben. And we're just going to go to a break now. Call us or text us. You can call us on 0344 499 1000, text us on 87222, or tweet us on @TalkTV. I'm Dr. Renée Hoenderkamp, and I'll see you after the break.